Game of the year. Eddie Garrison, it is here. Week 15. This is Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen. And the magnitude of Sunday at 425 cannot be reiterated enough. I will say it time and time again on this podcast in some form or fashion over the next couple of days as we get into this weekend. I believe the line has come down a little bit. Started at 4.5, I believe, down to 3.5 here as we get ready for a game that Denver needs to have. The Colts really, really, really need to have. If you look at it from that standpoint, that'll be the big focus as the Colts return from their bye week. Eddie, how are you, sir?
I'm great. It's nice to see the Colts are playing meaningful football games again, where games matter at this point of the regular season.
Yeah, and this now becomes can meaningful football be there in January? That is the question with that, and I would argue too many times this game has appeared on the schedule in recent years, and they haven't won this sort of game. It's a little different than it comes in Week 15. I would call Denver certainly one of the surprises this season. I didn't think they'd be 8-5. 7 of their 8 wins by 2 scores. Mm-hmm. That's something that also kind of stood out to me. Bo Nix has certainly had very promising moments. I would say their skill group is kind of some of its parts. They've had 5 different leading rushers this season. That's kind of an unusual stat for a team. Their offensive line has been a very solid protecting unit for Nix. I think back to that preseason game, and I remember Latu kind of had some nice rushes on Garrett Bowles in that game, and Bowles has been in such a solid left tackle for them. Defensively, certainly they are a team that in the front seven I don't think will wow you with name recognition. Patrick Surtain is a tremendous player at corner, was just AFC Defensive Player of the Month for November. He is easily the biggest name on that defense, but their defense has been very good in a lot of areas. So, again, I don't think they're overwhelming with a whole lot of what they have, but to be 8-5 at this point of the season, kudos to them.
Yeah, Bo Nix has played really well, and he's seemingly gotten better as the season's gone along. Although the stats from his most previous game leading up to the bye week are a little bit inflated because of that, whatever it was, 93-yard touchdown to Marvin Mims. But, yeah, like you said, the run game for them has been an area in which they haven't been able to consistently rely on. And we'll dive into that more. You ready to get into your bye week thoughts that you posted on 1075thefan.com?
Yeah, to map it out, we'll get into some of these bye week thoughts. We'll get back to the Broncos, certainly a decent amount of Twitter questions here. This will be our only pot of the week. We'll get back into our routine coming up. After Monday's game, we'll probably adjust a little bit around the holidays, but we'll continue to keep you informed before this season unfolds here in the final quarter of the year.
So like I said, this is on 1075thefan.com. 10 Colts things to watch post-bye week. And as you state inside of the article, with a 6-7 record, the Colts certainly have a chance to make the playoffs, but will need help along with doing their own work. Along with the playoff rush, there's plenty to keep an eye on the rest of the way for the Colts. Here are your top 10 things that you'll be watching for, and number 1 is obviously the quarterback in Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and Eddie, I don't know if we need to go 1 through 10, but just a couple that stand out to me. Let's start with Richardson. This is the most at-stake game he's had in his football career. This is bigger than anything he experienced in 13 games at Florida. This is bigger than anything he's experienced in 13 games so far in the NFL. And I say that with the phrase "at stake" is the key phrase. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not either you win and you're in or you lose and you're out, but it's about as close as you can get to that in Week 15. We'll go over the numbers here in a little bit, but it's just a monumental game. And when he was at Florida, he certainly played in front of big crowds. And I don't want to argue against that, but this is different. This is, in college football, the middle of November games really, really matter. And in the middle of December, the NFL, it really, really matters. And this one is just massive. It's another huge, outdoor road game. And think about that. If you're going to map out any path through the AFC, whether it's this year or down the road, Eddie, you don't think you have to make trips to Arrowhead or trips to Baltimore or trips to Buffalo? Or, if they ever figure it out, seemingly, a trip to Cincinnati with that quarterback and outside. So, that's going to have to be something. It doesn't sound like the weather is anything too cold coming up on Sunday out there. But still, these are the types of environments that are just a little different in the NFL. High of like 50-something coming up on Saturday or Sunday. High of 53.
Wow.
In Denver for that one. And, when you think about it, and we probably do this, maybe I do it too much, but, when you compare him to like C.J. Stroud in the same draft class, Eddie, I would argue C.J. Stroud has played in 7, 8 more at-stake games in his football career than Anthony Richardson has. I mean, think about it. Stroud played in a college football semifinal. The Michigan game itself, there was probably more at stake in those moments for Stroud. He played in a Rose Bowl. You go to obviously his NFL career and the at-stake nature to Week 18 last year against the Colts, and certainly their playoff win over Cleveland, and then the playoff game in Baltimore. And I know the primetime games, there's not as much at stake, but there's naturally more eyes. I mean, Richardson has yet to play in one of those. He didn't get that in the Minnesota game. So I just think when you add it all up, Eddie, what an unbelievable moment for him. He obviously has delivered in some big-time fourth-quarter opportunities each of the last 2 road games. I think you got to get back to that Jets 60-minute affair. Against New England, it was not a very good 55 minutes for Anthony Richardson up until that 19-play drive. So that's probably the first thing, is just Richardson related. I mean, and I know that the magnitude of 16, 17, and 18 those weeks, Eddie, from a opponent standpoint, won't be very big, but they could have a lot of meetings with the Colts. So just the fact that he's playing football at this time of year is huge, and this sort of opportunity certainly speaks to that.
Let's go to injuries. Ryan Kelly and Juju Brents could potentially return from injury reserve, although Shane Steichen said yesterday that he would not have an answer on that until later last night. So we may get some clarity probably tomorrow about the future of Kelly and Juju Brents.
Yeah, they will practice tomorrow. They've taken a lot of Wednesdays into walkthroughs. They will practice tomorrow, getting back from the bye week. Josh Downs is probably the other one I'd throw out there, just with that shoulder issue. Him, Braden Smith with a personal absence from that New England game. Those are the names on the list. Juju, I'm not holding my breath necessarily for like this week or anything like that, but he is eligible, of course, to return. Ryan Kelly, there seemed to be a little bit more optimism. Obviously, you would hope Tanner Bortolini, coming out of concussion protocol, would be, in the mix there. So, really right now, as I look ahead to this week, it's probably more the Braden Smith and Josh Downs ones that are front and center. And then for Denver, we should note, for those that watched their Monday night game against Cleveland, their second corner, they had their second quarter injured, Riley Moss. And Winston and Jerry Jeudy, they just picked on him.
Oh, yeah.
And they benched Levi Wallace during the game. It was a huge deal. So that injury question is still there. Is Riley Moss available? And then what does the Colts' depth at wideout look like? And how do they assign Patrick Surtain to a particular Colts wideout? I think those will kind of be some big question marks there. I'd say the only other couple things, Eddie, and feel free if anything sticks out to you to go ahead and chime in on. One wrinkle I'd like to see post-bye week, I'd like to see Will Mallory get some snaps instead of Kylen Granson. I don't know if it's overwhelmingly going to make a difference, but I think some accountability at tight end needs to happen. And if you go back, that Mallory catch or half catch, however you want to call it, what a huge play in that game. Just a huge play that set you up for the opportunity to go for it on fourth down. So, Mallory and Granson, to me, I know they're not necessarily the exact skill set guys, but they're thought to be more of the receivers. Speed is a little bit more prevalent in their games. So I would like to see that tweak there. And I'm just curious in general, what other wrinkles do we see? In the last few weeks, the Colts have implemented a very specific and committed design rushing attack with Anthony Richardson. Their best run play off of that has largely been to the left side. We've kind of seen that power-ish look to it in short yardage near the goal line. What are the wrinkles? What comes off that? What plays can you evolve off of that? Now, Denver faces the same thing. They obviously had a bye week as well. But still, this is where I think Shane Steichen can earn some of that from a schematic standpoint, exiting the bye week. And then lastly, I would probably just say this. Contractually, do any of these guys make a final statement? A little bit more big picture. Granson is one of those. EJ Speed and Julian Blackmon. I would argue the 2025 commitments to them, for me, have probably waned a little. I don't slam the door shut and say no, but I don't stand on a table for either. Dayo Adengbo, how is that viewed? Again, just some of these guys that are in contract years. Ryan Kelly is in a contract year. How do you look at that here as we exit the bye week?
For me, one thing is just the continued development of Latu. He's certainly flashed a little bit more. He's been able to get to the quarterback a couple more times than he had been, leading up to the bye week. And hopefully coming out of the bye week, we see another version of him that continues to build off of what he's been doing the last couple of weeks.
And again, Denver's been very good at protecting. So, can you get after Bo Nix a little bit there? And I would just add to it, Eddie, defensively, I don't want to ignore the issues that they had against New England. And we can't ignore that. I think that is something that you're fortunate in these final 4 games. Even Denver's offense is not some juggernaut. But, what are you going to do defensively? Because the margin for error is just so slim at 6-7 when you've reached this point. Anything else on your end, or should we get a little bit more into Denver before Twitter questions?
Let's dive into Denver. Something that I noted on and that you've noted on as well, in particular to the run game. 5 different leading rushers: Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime are the primary 3 backs that they rotate between it. And it's not even a for sure on who's going to be the lead back on Sunday. It seems to be different every single week. And then I don't think you can forget about Bo Nix as a runner either. Over 300 yards rushing, but he is very mobile and he extends the plays. 17 passing touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So there will be some chances for the Colts to make plays in the secondary. Where now, can they make them is the question.
Yeah, and Nix, he's not a gun-shy rookie quarterback. I mean, he will take some chances down the field. The Mims throw, I think, is one of the perfect examples of it. I mean, that was a throw right over the middle of the field in traffic, and it turned into a huge play for him from Monday night. Let's go over the numbers real quick before we get into Denver specifically. You can look at all these various places for playoff odds. Right now, the Colts a 29% chance to make the playoffs, okay? Denver's at 71. With a win, the Colts would go from 29 to 65. With a loss, they'd go from 29 to 9. It's hard to find a game in Week 15 that has a 56% difference, win or loss, especially one that's not in your division.
Yeah.
The Broncos, again, there's 71% chance to make it right now. With a win, that grows to 88. With a loss, it becomes 41. So, think about that. Their win-loss difference in the playoff is 47%. So, it's just such an impactful game, and I think the numbers probably speak to it best when you look at it from that. So I want to make sure that we started there. Again, they're 8-5, 7 of their 8 wins by 2 scores. The urgency, I think, organizationally is probably at a similar point with the Colts. I get a rookie quarterback might have shifted things, and again, Sean Payton, him and Shane Steichen obviously have been at their jobs in a very similar time span, but they haven't made it since 2015. The playoffs, and obviously Kansas City wins the division for another year. So, they probably look at these final 4 games and think, oh boy, they got a short week with the Chargers, right? Right after the Colts. You just don't want to play with fire. And Cincinnati still has potency. They've got them in Week 17, and then we'll see about Kansas City Week 18. That was one game I didn't think the Colts got help with. On Sunday night, I realized that the Chargers might now fall into a little bit more of a wild card picture, but I still think they'd have to fall on their face to get there. I think you need Kansas City playing for something Week 18. And with Buffalo losing to the Rams and Kansas City holding on or coming back to beat the Chargers, that's now a 2-game lead on the 1 seed. So, could you be looking at Carson Wentz facing Denver Week 18?
Yeah.
That's obviously not ideal for the Colts if they need Denver to lose. Because just a reminder, even if the Colts win Sunday, they still need another Denver loss.
Yeah.
If the Colts beat the Broncos on Sunday, the Colts become 7-7. Denver falls to 8-6. You'll have the head-to-head tiebreaker, but you got to get to the head-to-head tiebreaker. Well, the final 3 games map out a path. The Colts have Titans at Giants, Jags. Denver has, is it at Chargers, at Bengals, Chiefs, right?
Home Chiefs, yeah.
And again, the Chargers is on a short week, and then they'll have a little extra time. Yeah, that was very well done. So obviously they have the tougher schedule. That would be Denver. But still, you're going to need to finish with a better record for them. You can't slip up and then, whatever. 3-0 for you, 2-1 for them, 2-1 for you, 1-2 for them, something like that would have to happen. Again, defensively, they're third in scoring defense. They've been very stingy. Cornerback will be the question mark. I saw they worked out some corners this week. what is the depth there? And then lastly, I think this is probably just a different road environment that the Colts haven't seen in a while. I said this on our morning show today, Eddie. When's the last time the Colts have walked into a road environment where that fan base didn't hate their team?
Yeah, that's a good point. Green Bay?
Yeah, right? And
Houston?
won, I guess is probably the other caveat to throw in there. Because your 3 road wins this year, what? Tennessee, the Jets, and the Patriots. And those 3 fan bases pretty much hate their teams. So that's a little different. It will feel different, Saturday or Sunday coming up at 4:25. How do you react to that? But again, I don't think Denver. I mean, they started 0-2. I don't view them as some. Baltimore last year would be the last time. Yeah, you walked in there and you won such a game. But again, I don't view them as some menacing, super potent team. I know Cortland Sutton certainly offers some name recognition, but it's a bunch of random skill dudes, and defensively, it's a lot of guys that you probably don't know a whole lot about. And Nick Bonito and Zach Allen and Jonathan Cooper and some of those guys in their front 7 there. So. Cards Sean Payton and company for putting them in a position here at 8-5 to get it done. Anything else Broncos related before we move on to Twitter questions?
I was going to say Cortland Sutton has had a really good year for them. He's on pace for over 1,000 yards. He's got 5 touchdowns. He's been really big of late for them too. I know he didn't have a huge game against Pittsburgh, but I think credit's a large part to the Steelers defense, or Cleveland defense. He had 6 for 102, but it just didn't feel like he had a major impact on the game. He's at over 70 receiving yards in the last 6 games. So Colts will have their hands full again with another standout wideout.
Yeah, and again, he's kind of the one guy, but it's a very hodgepodge group. Now, Troy Franklin hasn't had a great start to his NFL career, so cannot wait. Sunday, 4:25, we'll give our picks to round out the pod.
Let's dive into Twitter questions, starting with Eric. I feel like bringing Mark Glowinski back into the O-line room offered some sort of renewed and nostalgic continuity like the 2018 Andrew Luck year. Something intangible about it, but I felt that number 64 could be a difference in a win or loss, and perhaps he was. My question is, how big of a role do you feel his return has played?
Boy, I must say, when I first read this question, I thought to myself, Andrew Luck return in 2018 comparison to 1 week of Mark Glowinski is something Mark Glowinski needs to probably clip out and add to his LinkedIn profile. I understand where Eric's coming from on that. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, Eric. I appreciate the question. Certainly the 2018 and 2020 O-lines, had some really, really good success. And I thought he played pretty good football. Now, the Tony Soprano connection with the Giants probably is a little bit on that end. I think that is something that, when you look at, that familiarity, that probably helps. And then also, when Braden Smith and Ryan Kelly get back, obviously it's the same exact line across the way. I guess, one argument would be just like, okay, where is Ryan Kelly at? Is he still giving you the level of play that you need? I still think he's the best out of the 3 options that you have, but that would be a question. It is wild to think about it, though, from a nostalgia standpoint of it's just Costanzo for Ryman.
Yeah.
That's the one difference when you look at the lines over the last couple of years. So pretty crazy on all of that. But this O-line I thought was just outstanding, really, against the Patriots. I don't think that's too big of a word to use. I thought they were really, really good, and that was with Gonzalez and with with Pinter. So really good from that group. And I think with Fries going down and going with Glowinski, I don't know. I just thought there was a little bit of a he was just on it. And I know it's kind of a weird way to describe it, but I just thought he did a really nice job. 2-point conversion, he has a great seal on that play that helps you out. Gonzalez kind of gets eaten up on that play. And I thought Glowinski did a nice job to kind of open up something for Richardson to kind of get 6'5" and 250 moving forward there. So, yeah, great work by the Colts there. And, kind of finding that. I thought, maybe they're a little too late on some of the offensive line competition there and very reliant on a lot of those rookies in camp. But when they realized they had more of an issue, they went out and they got somebody that I think has helped put a Band-Aid on that.
You know what they say, Kev? Better late than never.
Amen.
Daniel is next. Would you rather have Anthony Richardson continue to make small improvements the rest of the season with the arrow pointing up to next year, but the supporting cast lays an egg to miss the playoffs? Or would you rather make the playoffs with some improved play from the defense and supporting cast around AR, but AR's play is a continued roller coaster with a bad game to end the playoff run, leaving a question mark if he's the guy?
It's a great question. I think AR has shown a good amount to be encouraged about. Like, I thought Adam Archuleta had a good comment on the game last week with the Patriots of like, I don't really want to compare Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young on film. Like, Richardson has shown me enough flashes that I know there's something there. The question is, can you bring it out more consistently? Where, he was saying kind of Bryce Young hasn't done it to that level. It's fascinating because, Eddie, when you think about it, Richardson and Chris Ballard and Gus Bradley, these are such polarizing figures in all of this season. And I do think Richardson getting a taste of the playoffs is important. So if and when you get to that moment again, it's not maybe a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
I guess I would say this. I think his health is critical, final 4 games. I mean, if he can end this season playing 4 straight, think about that, Eddie. 1 injury to miss 2 games. Would you have signed up for that at the start of the year?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be unbelievable when you consider his health from his rookie season. So I guess I would start there. My other question I would have is this. He's been at his best lately, mostly with the committed rushing attack. I think his accuracy, certainly in the Jets game, was better. And I thought in the New England game, I don't think what was he? Was it 12 of 24 in New England?
I think so.
I don't think 50% tells the full story on that end, but still, it was not necessarily the methodical passing game that at times you do have to have. Like, are there a couple games where there are some strides in that, or more of a focus in that area? It kind of goes back to I know he can run, but to round out his game, to make you feel encouraged about it, would you want to see that? I remember at the start of the year, the question I had for Richardson was this. When you get to the end of year 2, as you're 1 year away from making the first financial decision on him, are you comfortable saying we think we want to give him a second contract? Like, is that the answer? Is that answer pointing in that direction? That's kind of the question I would have on that end. And I think right now the answer is I think so. I don't think it's it doesn't need to be overwhelmingly convincing. You still have a full more year to play football before you need to make that decision. But it's like, okay, I like what I'm seeing. It's going to be this offseason to the nth degree, the importance of it, and a healthy offseason for him, fine-tuning his passing mechanics, all those things. But I guess to answer Daniel's question, I think the taste of that game.
The playoffs?
Yeah. The taste of that playoff game means a lot. Means a lot. And again, this is where I think it's difficult for some people. It's like, are there Colts fans out there that will sacrifice something at the end of the year if it means a different direction on defense and or GM? And that's where, fandom is difficult. It can be, again, what sacrificial lambs are out there? Did the Purdue fan have to experience 66-0 for them to fire Ryan Walters? That's a humbling moment. If you were to tell a Purdue fan at the start of the year, you're giving up 66 to Notre Dame and Indiana, you better get a whole lot of something in return for that to sign up for it.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's where I think things get difficult here to end the year.
Mike is up next. Thoughts on how critical Josh Downs is for the Colts offense. With him out, this once again felt like a game where the supporting cast wasn't holding up their end of the deal for AR. Downs, to me, is AR's safety blanket and think he is definitely one of the most indispensable Colts.
Yeah, it's funny. With Downs out of the lineup, Eddie, I went back and looked at Richardson's specific numbers with and without Downs. It's not as glaringly different as I thought it would be. I thought it'd be pretty stark in the contrast of how much better he is with Downs than without him, and it's not, has been that. I go back to that New England game, and just to kind of simplify it, I just thought Drake May found simpler in the passing game better than the Colts did.
Mm-hmm.
Or easy in the passing game. And look, when Richardson threw the ball down the field, what happened? Granson did that, and A.D. Mitchell did that. So I think that's where you do have a little bit of optimism if you're the Colts moving to these last 4 games. It's like, we haven't gotten the Richardson deep ball in a while. We haven't had the 38-yard big chunk or the Pierce against the Jets. I guess you'd put like one of those in there, but like they've attempted some stuff really vertically, but they haven't hit on it. And you got to feel like he's going to hit on that at some point there. So I still think Downs is obviously a vital piece, or I should say a really critical piece to finding simpler and just keeping some drives a little bit more on the methodical nature to it all. But the numbers don't back that up as much as I thought.
Yeah, he had the big game week 1 because of Alec Pierce, the 9 for 19, but 212, and then 204 against Green Bay. A lot of that coming at the end when Green Bay was going prevent defense, but yeah.
But like, even though those numbers might not be something, that is whatever, hugely different on that end, I still think obviously Downs is important. And, can he turn one more drive that's ending in a Rigoberto Sanchez punt into something that's a little bit more of a, all right, you're not facing 3rd and 10. If you go back to that final drive with New England, Richardson tried to hit, I think it was a deep ball to Pierce down the sideline, and it was incomplete, like on a comeback. And then 2nd and 10, he had that big airmail over the middle. That was kind of the one big miss he had on that drive. And right there, it's 3rd and 10. And it's like, on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 10 there, did somehow you convert a pass that made it 3rd and 5? So you're not relying on Will Mallory. Like, Mallory in that moment became Downs. That's kind of how I viewed it. Of like, oh my gosh, you need 6 or 7 here to make it 4th and manageable to where you go for it. And then obviously he finds Allie Cox.
Gadot, is that where we're going here? Gatto?
Gatto. I believe so.
No, a question. Are we sure Gatto isn't like a whatever account for Alec Pierce? Because
Burner?
Yeah, Burner, thank you. Because Gatto doesn't have a question this week, but would like for me to read out his public apology or her public apology to Alec Pierce. Alec, or as I now refer to you, Andy Moss. I'm making my apology as loud as my disrespect. You are a dog, and I never gave you the credit you deserve. The faults of the system and players around you were mistakenly blamed on your talents. I also noticed your improvements, so salute to you and your hard work. You're proving it every day.
You know what? I think I might add one more to this. Before the start of the season, Eddie, remember we had the 2022 draft pick debate, the Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods, Nick Cross? Like, Bernard Ryman, is a hit from that draft class. But then the other 3, it's like their own individualized question marks.
Yeah.
Jelani Woods, it's mostly been injuries. Pierce, it's been, wait a minute, if you give him something, could he be better? I.e., you give him a bigger arm quarterback. And then Cross, it's like, what is he? Is he a strong safety? Is he a free safety? You feel like he has gotten some opportunity and he hasn't delivered for you. And like right now, how are you not encouraged by Pierce and Cross? I think you definitely are. I don't know if I'm ready to say that Pierce is a number 1 or Cross is a Pro Bowler. No, I'm not going there, but still, it took a little mixing and matching, but Nick Cross is probably more of a strong safety. Him as a free safety, I think that's where some liability can come into play. That's probably why you're seeing his playmaking a little bit more than Julian Blackmon's playmaking this season. And then Pierce, I've always felt this way. I've always said if he is a one-trick pony, that is a damn important one trick. The ability to stretch it, ask the Jets, the ability to make those plays is such a huge quality. But the 4th and goal catch, that's not a play that he's always come down with. And that is not a play that Anthony Richardson has always had the right timing with Alec Pierce on. I mean, if you would have told me before that play, the Colts are going to rely on a longish developing crosser to Alec Pierce, I would have thought, oh boy. I don't know if I would have been overwhelmingly confident at that moment there. Granted, without Josh Downs, I don't know exactly, 4th and 3, you're probably a little bit too far away from the goal line, but that was a little bit of that underneath stuff. He was decently covered on the 4th and goal, and he made a nice catch, and he held on to it. And some other guys didn't hold on to it on that drive. So I feel like we've seen a few more of the underneath saying. So Gatto, job well done here. And, a little public apology to Alec Pierce. Again, I was I don't believe I was ever in the, I'm done with Pierce by any means category. I thought the one trick is just so dynamic, and I could hear his agent screaming and saying, have you seen the quarterbacks he's played with? But I think he's also become a little bit more of a helpful route runner in other areas. And that, I think, is mostly on him than it is on, Anthony Richardson.
4 questions left. Twegman, if the Colts finish 9-8 and miss the playoffs, do you think we'll see Gus Bradley get fired? What about Chris Ballard? And if Bradley does get fired, do you think the Colts find a coordinator who still runs a bend but don't break scheme? I think you had the best podcast on the Colts. Have a very Merry Christmas. And I just want to throw this in there, Kev. I saw you share a couple of people on their Spotify Wrapped had us in the top 5. So thank you to all of our listeners, and thank you to those who listen to us more than others.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Eddie. I'm glad that you did that. Yeah, just beyond appreciative of people that continue to tune into us, because I know there's a ton of competition out there. There's a ton of great pods. So really, really means a lot to both of us. 9-8 on paper, that's not like an outright embarrassment, right? Here I am saying what I've said all along, Eddie. Like, predicting what Jim Irsay's going to do is like predicting how Tiger Woods' back is going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good luck. It's just, I do think the defense is hard to ignore. But again, you hear Shane Steichen talk about it, and
he's done a great job.
I mean, that was his first words about Gus Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, Shane, that's like me walking home to my parents and saying, hey, here's my report card. Ignore the C's and D's. I'm doing a great job. If you want to letter grade it out, show me these Gus Bradley statistics defensively that are great job stats. You're 18th in scoring defense. That's below average for a defensive coordinator in his 3rd year with gobs of resources. So, I'll kind of echo what I said on last week's podcast. At some point, you've got to ask critical questions about your defense. And again, what does Steichen want defensively? I guess I would go there as well. As far as Ballard is concerned, did you catch the Ballard piece in The Athletic by chance?
I caught part of it. I didn't get to fully read it all.
So Jim Trotter, a longtime cover of the NFL,
mm-hmm.
he wrote something on Bryce Young and Richardson, these two guys getting benched and coming back and having success. And Ballard had some comments, and I got a lot of questions during the bye week about Ballard and meeting the media, by the way. He didn't do the Colts official podcast. I know he sometimes has done that. I don't know. Sometimes we hear from Ballard at times during the season. Mostly we don't, though. I don't have a huge, strong takeaway on that. I think that my praise and criticism of Chris Ballard, I hope, has been fair. I think, I try to back it up with substance behind everything that I say. Do I think he should be talking to the media more? I don't know, not really. I think he talks a good amount. I think he's pretty candid when he talks to the media, frankly, when you compare him to the other 31 GMs. So, if people think this is me carrying Chris Ballard's water, so be it.
Water carrier.
I think other criticisms are much fairer than that. Sure, I would like to have heard from him during the bye week, or I think occasionally, didn't he do some quarterly stuff on the Colts Monday Night Show? Maybe a little bit earlier in his tenure. I feel like he used to do some more of those weekly appearance, not weekly, but occasional appearance, I should say, on the radio show. But nonetheless, in the story with Trotter, he mentioned getting emotional. I think his exact phrase was teary-eyed, watching the 19-play Anthony Richardson drive unfold. I say this in all honesty. I don't think it's that hyperbolic to think. I think those tears for Ballard are very specific to, Anthony Richardson's been benched. It's really cool to watch him mature and grow, and oh my gosh, look at him perform and save our season.
Mm-hmm.
And those are my words, of course. I don't think it's that hyperbolic to say, he might have saved that man's job. If you lose to New England and then you eventually miss the playoffs, that now starts to creep into Jim Irsay embarrassment. When did Jim Irsay fire Frank Reich?
After the loss to New England.
I would argue he fired him from the damn owner's box when he called Jeff Saturday.
Yeah.
That game just means a little bit more. It's different. That stadium means a little bit more. And if let's say Richardson throws a pick on that drive.
It was the New England game, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was that or the Giants. I couldn't remember. They were.
Yeah, no, Sam Ellinger got sacked a million times. Giants was, I think, on New Year's or Christmas, or that was when Nick Foles was convulsing on the field.
And Kayvon Thibodeau was doing snow angels next to him.
Exactly. So, like, I read that quote and thought, man, I mean, I sat very close to Chris Ballard and watching football games with him before. He is a highly emotional individual during these games, so that does not surprise me for him to have that reaction. But, like, big picture, man, I mean, that drive, the Julian Blackmon interception and then that drive, just circle it.
Yeah.
And I hope on January 10th, when we look back on it, like, I will still remember it and hold it in that regard for what that season meant. I did find it interesting as well, Eddie, in that piece, Hindsight's 2020, he mentioned that he wishes that they would have sat Richardson as a rookie.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up to say that. Does Jim Irsay also think that? And does that mean the leash is longer? Oh, no, we should have sat him. You know, looking back on it, we should have sat him. I don't view that as a mistake by my leadership, by my whatever, head coach and GM. I view that as a, hey, we're going to learn from it. This is a young marriage, and they're going to get a pass. Again, these are all Jim Irsay-related thoughts that I throw out there and let everyone else try to gauge their opinion on it. I guess to bring it full circle right now, I think if the defensive issues continue to be this way, I would like to hope a decision would be there. With Chris Ballard and his GM status, I continue not to hold my breath on it.
3 questions left. Kevin, Zach would like to know if you were watching the tackles of the future in that game against the Patriots.
Well, certainly Ryman back at left tackle. That's obviously a no-brainer. And then Matt Gonzalez over at right. Yeah, I mean, 2 third-round picks per tackle. Boy, that'd be huge. I don't know. I'm not ready to slam the door on Braden Smith. I get that he's battled injuries, and I get that there's some money on that contract that some people would like to look into. But, I mean, he had missed 1 snap this season, right? Up until this personal situation.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if it's totally, could you go another year with kind of this 3-tackle rotation and then pass the torch a little bit more down the road? That might be something that makes more sense to me.
Riz has a very random question for the pod, Kev. Do you think the Colts will ever go back to the blue face mask? Every year, Riz wishes they would bring it back. Wonder why they did away with him. So clean.
How about that? The blue face mask. I kind of forgot about the blue face mask. I got to Google image that. We do occasionally get a Colts jersey question or two from some people. Yeah, I'm all about this. Are you on board, or am I on an island here?
No, you're not. You're not on an island.
It's very vintage. I mean, here's Leonard rocking the blue face mask at one point. Oh, hell, Richardson's rocking it. What game is that from? Oh, it's a mock-up. I was like, what in the world here? Yeah, I mean, Peyton having a little throwback on it. Oh, this is a Leonard alternate. Oh, I love those jerseys. Those are great looking. The blue pants. That's awesome. Yeah, I could get behind that.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I mean, I'm all for a little tweak. I think the Colts are weirdly like, oh my gosh, we have the most tradition-rich jerseys, and it's like some holy grail. I'm like, who cares?
Insert the Dallas Cowboys.
It's not like I'm asking you to wear different jerseys every single week. It's a 1 game over a 17-game season.
Final question comes from Michael. College football playoff starts next week, KB. IU versus Notre Dame. This is not from him. This is me talking.
Oh.
Are you okay? Are you mentally okay?
No, I'm not. It's pretty sickening how much I've thought about Notre Dame losing this game, and the shameful amount of people that have probably never interacted with me before in their lives on social media, and they'll just come out in vultures tweeting at me. It's such a sad, sorry state of a fandom to be in right now. So, yeah, this is not the matchup that I wanted.
Okay, so Michael's question says, hey, KB, wanted to throw in a bye week question for the pod. I live in SEC country, so I want to hear your insight. You have to give a presentation to other fan bases around the country why Notre Dame gets a red carpet walk to the postseason play every single year. The Irish are 0-10 in major bowl games since the BCS era, not in a conference, and strength of schedule is mild to say the least. Go. Yes, I'm a salty. My Ole Miss Rebels didn't get in.
Well, they say if you ever start off with all due respect or respectfully, you can just say anything off of that after that. Is that right?
Allegedly. Allegedly.
That's kind of how it works. Michael, with all due respect, respectfully, I probably should insert here, Eddie, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for messaging a question in. Your loyalty means a lot. Sounds like, you obviously have ties to outside of our, direct sort of, backyard. So that means a lot as well. Michael can kiss my bare ass.
Your bare ass?
Yes, bare. I wanted to make sure I threw that in there. I thought just kiss my ass wouldn't really get the point across. I don't know if Michael missed Notre Dame in week 1, going to an SEC school and winning by 2 scores. Like to see the list of how many teams have done that at Texas A&M in the last few years. Did I miss Ole Miss getting their ass kicked by 4-win Kentucky to end the year? Did Louisville? I guess what? So Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Louisville kicked Ole Miss's ass. Did Notre Dame beat Louisville this year? Did I miss that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Did I miss Notre Dame beating South Carolina in a bowl game recently? Did I miss Notre Dame beating LSU in 2 bowl games as well? I guess I missed all of those. I think it's such a pathetic and sad and inaccurate sort of debate that people have of Notre Dame is the most overrated team in college football every year. Certainly there was a time and place when Notre Dame as a program deserved that sort of label. Mm-hmm. There was a time and place of a program that Notre Dame underachieved on a rather annual basis. That time has not been in the last decade. I mean, hell, you look at it this year. Where'd they end it? AP poll, they finished 3rd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where was their preseason ranking?
7?
Right. So another year goes by, another year where Notre Dame improves on their, again, they shouldn't be ranked 7th. Everyone says at the start of the year they should be 15th, this and that. So another year goes by where, let's look at the Notre Dame schedule, as Michael would like to a little bit closer here. I see 6 wins over teams that won 8 games or more this year. I see 4 of those 6 wins away from home. How many programs have that? It's not Notre Dame's fault that Miami decided to back out of the schedule this season. Miami's like, oh, no, we didn't realize we had Florida. We're going to back out. Can you replace a new ACC team in our place? Well, it ended up being Florida State. Well, Florida State has their worst year in years. So, yeah, I think this is an absolutely idiotic take by Michael, and I couldn't make that clear.
Any more you'd like to add? You want to pour more gasoline over the fire?
I really hope Notre Dame wins a week from Friday.
Really?
I've said it to you many times, Eddie. Don't know if the analogy is perfect, but I have room in my heart for one woman. That is the great Maddie Lubbers. I'm so fortunate that she has chosen to be life partners with me. I have room in my heart for one team.
Tiger Woods.
Team. All these people are like, oh, so win-win scenario. Win-win scenario.
Tiger Woods? I didn't know he was a team.
Notre Dame. Lou Holtz on my shirt, first day of kindergarten, back in 1995. Here I am today.
I saw that photo.
30 years later.
Handsome kid.
And I love Lou. And I love Notre Dame. IU, unbelievable season. I think the spread's too high, frankly. But, gosh, there's just something about losing to Indiana football that I'm going to have to hear for the rest of my life.
Tickets as low as $802.
Tickets insane. My DMs are open if anyone is selling.
Can you pay for parking?
That's my shameless play. Oh my God, parking is just as insane. Have you seen the parking prices, dude?
I haven't. I've heard people talking about them.
Absolutely nuts. Who do you like? I need a outsider's view. Notre Dame or Indiana?
I like Notre Dame.
Do you?
I do.
Gosh, they're a little banged up, man. Got a big kicking problem.
They remind me of Michigan against Indiana. Very physical up front. They'll run the ball down your throat. Yep. I don't know if Indiana can handle the physicality.
Yeah. God, there's times where I think Notre Dame's physical, and there are other times I'm like, I think IU's pretty good in the trenches, especially D-line. I know their O-line struggled a bit against Ohio State, but still, I thought they've protected Rourke pretty well.
Colts Broncos prediction, Kev.
Colts Broncos. Okay, what do we got? 3.5 on the spread. What's that over under? 42-ish?
Ish, yeah.
Something like that. I will go with We'll go with Broncos 23-20. I just think, again, I'm not overly impressed by Denver individually.
Yep.
But I think they have a defensive unit that will make one more play than New England and New York did against Indy. You know, those games came down to you need your offense to deliver in the fourth quarter. Like you had 3 fourth downs, right, and a 2-point conversion against Denver that were all needed. Against New England that were all needed. I just think Denver's team is a little bit more equipped to making one of those plays. So, boy, I'm really putting it on the test here. What am I, 13-1 on Colts pick?
I think so.
How many Colts games have we had? 12-1? They're 6-7, is that right?
Yeah, you're 12-1.
12-1. 10 straight wins. Put it to the test. Denver 23-20.
This is our Colts. This is our team.
Ooh, you're going there with Seth, the fan of the year?
We bleed blue. Yes. I'll go 23-20. I'll go the opposite of you there.
Any grand reasonings why?
I think the bye week allows a lot of players to get healthy for the Colts, specifically up front. I think Jonathan Taylor gets healthy. I think they'll be able to run the ball finally with JT. Unlock him a little bit. Hopefully Downs is back. To me, I think if Downs plays, I think they win. If he doesn't play, I think they lose. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think Downs is a critical piece. Again, we'll see about Braden Smith's situation and how the rest of the week unfolds. It is such a fandom circle game. What a time, certainly, to be a fan of the Colts in a game that last year became Week 18. This year it's Week 15. You all but got to have it. It is 4:25 on Sunday. We'll be back coming up on Monday to recap the pod. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen signing off.